Seth Rogen and Zac Efron bested the Spidey superhero at last weekend's box office. The family versus fraternity comedy Neighbors was the top draw for moviegoers this past weekend, unseating last week's champ, The Amazing Spider-Man 2. The rated R comp Neighbors debuted with 51 million in ticket sales, pushing Spidey to second place with 37 million. The Cameron Diaz Leslie Mann comedy The Other Woman held on to third place in its third week of release, earning another $9 million in ticket sales. So this weekend, a giant lizard, the one you know as Godzilla, stomps into a multiplex near you. Or you can take in a feel-good, fish-out-of-water sports tale. Here's Sean McBride, the movie guy, with a review.
In 1954, we awakened something.
Well, there's nuclear tests in the Pacific. Not tests.
They were trying to kill it.
Godzilla returns for another shot at box office mayhem in a film that puts a more realistic spin on the giant movie monster genre.
What's really happening is that you're hiding something out there. And it is going to send us back to the Stone Age.
Bryan Cranston headlines this atypical summer movie cast, playing a scientist investigating the destruction of a nuclear power plant. Now, Cranston is pretty good, but let's face the facts. The real star of this show is Godzilla. Director Gareth Edwards wisely holds the big guy back for an hour, so we're champing at the bit when we finally do get to see him in all of his city-stomping glory.
You have no idea what's coming.
Godzilla turns out to be quite impressive. Great visual effects and sound design here, coupled with a more realistic feel to the film story that should make Godzilla a monster hit in theaters this weekend.
It's called $1 Million Arm. We find the first Major League Baseball player from India.
Now, this weekend's Sacrificial Lamb is the feel-good sports drama $1 Million Arm. It's the tale of a U.S. sports agent who goes looking for baseball pitchers in India. $1 Million Arm is quite formulaic, but I'm a sucker for an underdog story, and I think most audiences will enjoy this heartwarming sports flick.
These kids, they're my last best shot.
But they're also just a couple of great kids. Kids. I mean, they're far from home. They need to see that you care.
And that's what's new at the movies this week. I'm Sean McBride, the movie guy.
And Sean, the movie guy, joins us via Skype to talk about this week's new movies and Godzilla, Sean.
It's going to be a monster hit. It is tracking very well particularly amongst teenage boys. So if you want to see it, this is your weekend to see it. You'll be surrounded by really rabid fans going out to see this monster movie. And the good news is that Godzilla proves to be pretty good as far as mindless popcorn filmmaking goes. It's an interesting film because, one, we have the shadow of that 1998 Roland Emmerich film, which people are still trying to block out of their memory. Just obviously the fans of Godzilla hated that movie. This one is by Gareth Edwards. He's a guy who did Monsters, and he's very wise that he knows that sometimes the tease is more important than actually showing us the monster. So for the first hour of this film, we really don't get to see Godzilla. We get to see some of the other mutants and whatnot, and so it's fun that way. But when he finally shows up, the anticipation is built up so much that at my screening, the audience burst into spontaneous applause. Really, they quite enjoyed it. When he does show up, those special effects are very good. Sound design is also very good, as you would expect in a movie like this. I think it works very well as, sheer popcorn filmmaking. It is kind of interesting. They have an atypical summer movie cast. Say Bryan Cranston and Juliette Binoche and all these actors that are not your typical matinee idols that you would expect to see at a summer movie. It gives the film kind of a serious side to it, which gives it a little more gravitas than it really should have. I mean, this is a giant monster movie. It should kind of just be silly and popcorn fun. It gives it that gravitas, and it sort of makes you take it a little more seriously. And I think fans will like that too. So I think this is a good movie. It's certainly not a Academy Award-winning movie, but it's if you're just looking for a fun night out in the movies, Godzilla is going to be a monster hit.
There's some controversy about the monster itself, Godzilla, and I hate to even go there, but some people say, Godzilla's too fat.
The real controversy is that they've lowered Godzilla's iconic scream. For me, that was the strangest part. The monster is much more menacing than it ever was. It's obviously not a man in a rubber suit anymore, but that scream being lower and growlier just sort of was a strange change for me, because I always thought Godzilla should have that high-pitched scream. They're just trying to update the monster, keep him fresh. I didn't have a problem with that.
Okay, so that first hour where you're waiting for Godzilla to show up, you're not looking at your watch.
No, it goes by quickly, but it's like, yeah, come on, let's see some monster action.
All right. Yeah, let's stomp some cities into oblivion. All right. The other movie opening this week is $1 Million Arm, and like Godzilla, it takes a TV star who's made it big in a television series and puts him into a leading man role. This one sort of being a sports tale, a fish out of water story.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting tale because it's a feel-good sports drama, and so I kind of like it just on default. I don't think it's a very good one. I think it's kind of a by-the-numbers, very cliched story of this American baseball guy, agent, who goes to India to find a cricket player who can translate his skills to Major League Baseball. Okay, that's interesting. It's a fish out of water tale for the kids, but it's not really the kids, the Indian players' story. It's John Hamm's story, and I'm not sure how I feel about that. Part of it would be more interesting to see wide-eyed, these Indian players being overwhelmed with a new culture and a desire to make it big in baseball. That's a far more interesting story, but instead they stuck with telling the agent's perspective, and that was kind of boring at times to me. Look, it's like I said, it's still a feel-good Disney-branded family sports film, so it's perfectly fine. It's PG-rated, so you can take the kids to it as long as you don't ask too many questions about it's almost like American imperialism, colonialism. It's kind of an interesting take on that. If you don't think about those questions, you'll be fine with just enjoying the movie and the underdog sports story.
Okay, obviously not a weekend to do a lot of thinking at the movie theater. Just enjoy your popcorn and watch things go splody on the screen.
There you go. Right. Godzilla goes smash.
All right, Sean, thanks a lot.
All right, we'll see you next week.
And we'll see all of you at a matinee.